Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Oh, just give me a sec here. I'll just turn that off because it gets in the way. Alright, so yeah, it's March, late March, and it's snowing like crazy outside today. I hope it's the last of it. But anyways, I stumbled across this really cool feature in Adobe Photoshop where you can take a black and white photograph, like old photographs that your folks may have had, and you now have them. And what it is you can actually, with Adobe Photoshop Elements, you can change the color of a subject in the photograph. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the subject that the photograph was taken of. It could be something in the background, something in the foreground, or off to the side. And you can, with Adobe Photoshop, you can change the color of that, and it's a really cool feature. It could add a different kind of element to a boring black and white photograph. So what we'll do is, I got a picture here. It's of a car. Well, there's two cars in the photograph. I've already played around with this photograph in Adobe Photoshop, and I could only really get the true color of one of the cars. The other car I couldn't get because they're next to a building, and I guess there's too many shadows. I couldn't try to replicate the true color of one of the cars. So we'll do it again with just one of the cars, and I'll walk you through it. And I'll show you some photos also that I've done in the past. One of them was a photograph that I took last year. It was a color photograph, but with On One Photo Raw, I was able to use the effects feature and change it to a black and white. And then with Adobe Photoshop, I added color to one. It was actually the main subject. So I'll show you that photograph too. Alright, so we'll get on with it. Okay. Alright, so this is the photograph that I'm talking about, and these are the two cars in the background. My dad took this photograph. It looks like he took it in the 1950s. So you got all these people, looks like they're all getting off work and rushing home, and I guess my dad was in the area and took the photograph. I assumed the photograph and the subject of the photograph was these cars. So we're going to concentrate on this card here. So, all right. Now, very important. The very first thing that you want to do with a black and white photograph like this is check to make sure that it's set in the proper mode, because by default this is grayscale. So you're going to need to go up to Image, and you're going to go down to Mode, and you're going to select RGB color. Once you have that done, you can basically start doing the edit of the subject. So what we're going to do next is you're going to go to the quick selection tool, or the quick brush tool. This is the quick selection tool here, and usually by default, if you've never used it, that's what it's going to show the first time up here on the top left right here. So we'll just quickly try and do a quick selection here. Now I know it's not going to select all the car, and it's going to select some different parts of the photograph that you're not going to be editing, so you're going to have to remove that. So you can see how it's grabbing a lot of your subject here. Okay. Alright, so now what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to the brush tool, and you're going to need to start editing it. Now to do that, you just need to be, okay, so we're on subtract right now. This is another important thing. If you're not on, if this is not set to selection, the only other option is mask. When you're on mask, it's going to do that, and you're going to be like, what's going on? All you got to do is go down and make sure it's on selection. Okay, now right now the size, let's concentrate on this wheel well. So we're gonna see right now it's all selected, so we want to subtract that from the from what we're going to change. So we're going to go to right now it's on add, so you're going to select subtract, and you're going to go up. You might want to change the size of what you're selecting, so let's do about 10 pixels. So we'll go up and we'll start subtracting that from our edit. Okay, so you might think that's pretty good, but what you can actually do is you can zoom in. So go up here, zoom in. You can get this right down to each individual pixel. So you can see what needs to be added and what needs to be removed. In this part, we need to remove, so you're going to go back to the quick selection brush, and you're still on subtract, so you're going to reduce the size from 10 pixels down to, let's go right down to 1. Now you're just removing each individual dark pixel from the image or the selection. Now you can do the same thing if you've, like here, I'll show you. If I accidentally went like this, and I've now removed part of the body here, I do even more. What you can do there is just go switch back to add, and just do the same thing. Just add it back in. And we'll go back to subtract, and we'll continue on with this. Now I'm not going to make you guys sit through this whole edit. So what I'll do is I'll continue editing the photograph until I have everything selected, and then I'll come back and show you what it's going to look like before we start to go any further. Alright, perfect. Back in a minute. Okay, so I pretty well have the whole car selected, and let's go to the next phase. So I just want to double check. Let's just go do a quick zoom in. Maybe some adjustments there. That's about it though. Because you're zoomed out so much, it's really hard to see any flaws in your work. Just add a bit here. See, the car's at an angle, so you can see how it drops down each step as you're going along here. And that can be a little tricky, but like I said, you're basically at pixel level at this point. So when you zoom out, and when you actually end up changing the color, then it's really not noticeable at all. Alright, so we made sure we were in mode, image, mode, RGB color. So the next step is go back to your quick selection brush, and you're going to go down to refine edge. Click on refine edge, and you're going to, don't touch anything in here, just output to and selection, new layer with layer mask. Select that and click OK. Now you can, it's created the new layer, so you can unhide the background. And now you're going to go up to layer and new adjustment layer, hue and saturation. Select use previous layer to create clipping mask. Click OK. Click on colorize, and boom. Now, from the 1950s and the 1960s, and on some of the images that I've worked on, I did a little bit of research because there's a photograph that I took, or that I edited, and I had to do a little bit of research on it to find out what color the subject or the material that I was changing, what it was in the 50s and 60s. And what the photograph was it was a photograph of my mom at some sort of a graduation for nursing. I'll show that photo after. So I researched nurses' uniforms in the 1950s and 60s, and I talked to my sister, and we're pretty sure we got a good color match on it. But anyways, for this photograph, I'm pretty sure back in the 50s and the 60s that a lot of cars and a lot of the colors for cars were pastel. Now you can try and change the color, but I actually like this color. So you can change the hue and you can see it's changing the color. Now it could have been a blue, so there's a blue. Now you really don't need to add much saturation to this, but if you do, this is what's going to happen. Now that just looks ridiculous, so you could tone it down a bit, and that looks more realistic for cars, colors of cars back in the 50s and 60s. But I think I like the red or pinkish color, and so I'm just gonna leave it like that. I like it like that. And the thing is too is, like, if we just do quickly here, we'll just go Control Z to back out of everything we did. Okay, so let's redo it. So layer, new adjustment, layer, hue and saturation. Use that. Use previous layer to create clipping mask. Click OK, colorize, and what I was mentioning before is Adobe Photoshop. It can actually know, or I don't know how it's doing it in the software, but it can actually determine the correct color of something from a black and white photo. So that's the color that Adobe picked, and I actually like that color, so we're going to leave it like that. And just zoom out a bit. So there, this is like a completely different element to the photograph from the original photograph. Now you could have done different things with this photograph, but when you're doing multiple colors in this, you can only do, the way I figured it out is you can only do one color at a time. Save the image, reopen the image, and then work on your next color. Save the image, close the image, work on your next color. So for example, if I wanted to try and see or change all the clothing, the color of all the clothing of what everybody's wearing here, I could do that. Now that can work really well for black and white photos, but if you take a color photograph and then you change it to a black and white photograph, it doesn't work as well, because I did it on another photograph, changing of the guards on Parliament Hill back in the mid-70s, and I changed it to the color photograph to black and white, and when I changed all the guards' uniforms in the parade, it didn't look quite right, but it was kind of neat looking. I'll show that too afterwards. Okay, so that's it. One thing I forgot to mention is once you've done your creation, just go up to the top left, File, Save As, point it to the directory you want to. I save them all as JPEGs. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'll show you some photographs that I've changed, including one of the photographs that I took last year of a sunflower. It was originally taken in color and I changed it to black and white. It actually turned out really well. And the original photograph was good. I liked it. And I took some other photographs that day doing some sun stars. But when I took this photograph and I changed it to black and white in on one photo raw, and then opened it up in Adobe Photoshop and did the same thing where I do my selection of just the sunflower, and I was shocked. It was just like, wow, it really popped out, and it actually looks better than the original color photograph. With just the sunflower yellow and everything around it black and white, it just pops the sunflower. It's just like, I would almost consider printing that off and hanging it on the wall. Anyways, I hope you liked it. I'll show you some of the other pictures I did now, and we'll see you on the next video. So thanks for watching, and click the like and subscribe. Bye!